chance to be ruthless.
Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with every breath. My past is filled with things I won't forget. I use them all to push me to my best. So treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself, figure out what you like, and find your limits, don't be rigid, always work towards a prime. Surround yourself with open minds, people can change your life. A few friends with intent can help you feel alive. Find a passion, take some action, and with a little time, just be patient, make a statement, try to enjoy your life. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown. They wanna fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing, won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless. I make some progress, I can see that they compare. I think everyone's against me, maybe something in the air. Am I paranoid? I swear a void is forming and they're scared. I walk a straight path, not many can say that. I like to play fast, cross me and there's payback. You better pray that I don't see your face at any place that I go. I know you hate that. I've been doing fine, I'm not wasting any more time. I live for the fight and the climb. I think that the pain that's deep inside is what defines. So I won't give up, I'm gonna make it to the top. I don't care what's in my way, I swear I'm never gonna stop. I could fall flat on my face and I swear I won't get back up. Cause I don't deserve a thing and the road ahead is tough. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown. They wanna fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing, won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless.
And we are rolling in, going free. Let me check the audio. Please give me some feedback if something isn't right, but it looks okay. Figured I would hop on here really quickly because I wanted to share with you all something. We have all the normal means for communication up, Entropy Odyssey, Cash App, and of course the live streams that are rolling. And so you can just tag me as No White Guilt there, and I will get to it. Franklin and Nathaniel both coming in. Thank you both with some feedback there. And Ozark as well. So the other day, thank you all for that. The other day, I very rarely turn on television. Just what I normally do is if I have anything on, I'm not sitting down to watch television. I am sitting down, say, to eat. And normally, if the TV's on, it's on the news and there's no sound. I'm just enjoying my meal or disliking my meal, whatever it might be. And then just reading what's coming up on the screen as the news readers are reading, though I can't hear them. The other day, I sat down to eat, and I turned on the television to do this. And on one of the rarer occasions, I turned on a television show, and this show is called Beyond the Unknown. Now, I don't know this show. I don't follow this show. It's a mainstream show. I don't even know what network it's on. The host is called Don Wildman, and effectively the premise of the show is that they will highlight a museum, and it seems like they'll do several museums a show, and in some town somewhere, United States, and they will speak briefly to a couple of the items in the show. And the seeker is asking, how fast could you run in high school? Heard you were a hound. I guess that means fast. I was very fast. When I was a freshman in high school, I ran a 40-yard dash because it's football. So yards, 40-yard dash, it was 4.7. As a freshman, I ran a 4.7. By the time I was a senior, I had effectively reached my fastest speed, although it wasn't with laser until university, which was a 4.4 40-yard dash. So I could fly. I was like the wind. And it was great. It was great on the football field, especially when there was so much attention given to some non-white athletes for their athleticism and foot speed. And I could just run away from them. Most of them. Some of them were quite fast. But yes. So on this show, thank you for the question and good to see you. DL is here. Rowan is here. Speed runner. That's excellent. Foster says, you sound great, Jason. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So they'll highlight a couple of items in the museum, and they'll just speak briefly to it. But then they'll pick a particular item, and they'll do a segment on the item. I don't even recall. I wasn't even paying much attention at first. You have to understand that this is chance. This is chance. And this is how prevalent anti-whitism is, and just slips for so many right under the radar. So it's a great example. And I want to keep the stream short. I'll read some of your comments that I didn't get to on Sunday, but I want to keep the stream short because of it. But it's something we can, should be eminently shareable. But perhaps the item in a museum was a newspaper clipping. And that's really what this centers on for me and for us here. And in this story that they told, it was New York City. It was the 1940s, I believe. And it might even say here, I will put it up on the screen. And it was all about the story, and the article, the newspaper article was Parrot Solves Murder. So New York City, 1940s roughly, a bartender had been murdered. And when the police arrive, and this is the story that Wild Man is telling everyone, bartender had been murdered. And so the detective shows up to investigate. And there's a parrot, some kind of a, not conure, but it's a larger parrot. And as the detective is there investigating the crime scene, the murder, the parrot is yelling, screaming out, "Robber, robber." And the detective then wonders, stupidly, I would think, was this place robbed? Because, of course, a parrot can't think like a person can. But anyhow, he checks the register, and no, indeed, all the money is there. The bartender's money was there. Other things that could have been of value and stolen were all there. So he ends up not being able to solve the crime. He doesn't know. Can't find evidence. Now, I was busy doing other things, probably reading and responding to messages on my phone while I was eating as well. So I don't know the span of time. Maybe it was a year, maybe it was a number of months later that the detective returns to the bar, and the crime has still not been solved. And he's sitting in the bar. He has himself a drink, I believe they said maybe, but he's sitting there at the bar, and then he notices that some of the clientele that comes in, the parrot shouts the name of the person coming in. So sometimes, people will come in, parrot's quiet. Sometimes a guy comes in and the parrot is suddenly like, "Chris." And another one's like, "Bob." So the detective, and this is a true story, the detective then wonders, my gosh, was the parrot not saying robber, but was saying Robert? So the detective begins questioning. Before he does that, he tries to teach the parrot his own name to see if the parrot will say his own name and the detective's name. And the parrot's not able to do it. The current bartender comes over and says, "Oh, no, it takes a long time. You got to be a regular here and say your name over and over to this parrot before he eventually knows your name and will say it when you walk in." So that's when the detective says, "I get it." So he asks other patrons that are longtime patrons whom the parrot knows their name if they knew of a Robert, and had they ever seen a Robert. And indeed, they told him, they gave him his first lead. Yes, there was a Robert that was a regular. He was a cab driver in New York City, 1940s, and that he had disappeared. Well, the detective wonders, when did he disappear? Well, about after the time that the bartender was murdered. So the detective thinks, aha, this might be our murderer. So the detective tracks down this Robert and finds him one evening and confronts him about the murder of the bartender. And the cab driver, who in this depiction of New York City 1940s, the television show had cast everyone that I saw as white. So 1940s New York, everybody's white. The detective, the cab driver, the regulars, the bartenders, everybody's white. The detective confronts Robert, the cab driver, and says, "Hey, we have evidence that you might be the murderer of this bartender." Well, the cab driver breaks down. Yes, he confesses he had murdered the bartender in a fit, in a rage. He was drinking and he wanted more, and the bartender said no. So he shot the bartender dead. Well, my friends, this television show and Wild Man flashed the actual original article on the screen. I saw it for a fraction of a second, and something leapt out at me. So I looked it up. And apparently I do have my glasses in here. So it was up for just a fraction of a second. Here's how the article reads. New York. As bizarre as any far-fetched detective story of fiction is the case which police marked closed today with the arrest of Robert Butler, 28, Negro cab driver. So, Beyond the Unknown television show, producers, everybody involved that would have been aware of this, the people who decide who the actors will be, intentionally selected a white man to play the role of the black murderer in this story, to misrepresent clearly, in my opinion, to misrepresent the races involved. Especially you're thinking 1940s New York. How many non-white people were in 1940s New York? And then here you are highlighting the story, and one of them happens to be a murderer of a white bartender who's just trying to do his job and get by in the world because this guy wanted more booze. So an intentional misrepresentation and evidence of it. And here it is. (1942). There it is right there. He was the owner. So the guy that he murdered was also a businessman, I'm sure trying to feed his family and giving the community something that they wanted and needed. And then this murderer murdered him. So that's what it was. I've seen this many times, actually. Well, more than a handful of times, where you even have had 2 times where there have been instances where it was a white police officer who did something extraordinary in the real world. And then the anti-whites who make our entertainment, who tell us our history. This is a history lesson that people were watching on television. It really happened. They decided to flip the races and made the police officer non-white so that it could conform to the anti-white narrative. And in one of those cases where they changed the police officer from white to non-white, they also changed the criminal that he caught from non-white to white. So they had totally reversed. They are doing that malice aforethought, in my opinion. That's not an accident. That is not an accident. This is what's going on in the world all around us. You probably have your own examples, and I'm going to take a look at what you're writing, and I'm going to read some comments, and then we're going to get out of here. Thank you all for showing up so that I could share. Turn on the TV. How often do I turn on the TV to see something other than just the news rolling in the background silently? And I turn on the TV, and this is what I see. Wildman and Beyond the Unknown giving me a reverse the races of the murderer of the hardworking bar owner. I don't know, Seeker, anything about that. I'd have to look it up. Unless you have the info that you could provide. We have a comment here from Myrtle Tree. She says, Jason, could you bring awareness, please, to the devastation from Hurricane Fiona and the aftermath in the Atlantic, Canada? We mentioned it last night on Jason Goes Political. We hope that she said, Myrtle Tree says, one of the whitest parts remaining on our continent and thus neglected when it desperately is when aid is desperately needed. Thank you in advance. Well, our hearts go out, hearts and prayers to everyone who's suffering up there. And yeah, this is regrettably, look at how we're treated in South Africa, ritualistic gang rape and murder, and the regime, the anti-white regime across the West, is totally silent on it. They couldn't care less. But if a anti-white, non-white thug is thieving, murdering, whatever it might be, and they end up in an altercation with police in which they are beaten or killed, well, then we're all made to pay attention to that. It's written in the sky. This is how the anti-whites work. That's why we have a remedy for it rather than just complaining about it. Escape writes here, fear not, for the anti-white is corrupted. Their mean pathogens just got disrupted. Too late for the lost to see the light inside going free. Very well written. Thank you for that little poem, brother. Well done. Susan of Hull Humberside says, Jason, at 2:51, I'm thrilled you tackled whiteness. We know that our victimizers have once again chumped everyone outside this community, and I listen and digest lots of white sympathetic content by throwing that vile concept into the ring. And if I told you that many very close to home use it when they should know better, it usually happens on their own streams, radio stations, etc. And of course, it's not appropriate nor helpful at all to name them, as it's white negative to do so and would not be positive. There has been pushback by some individuals with Semiteness. I deliberately left that out as it doesn't help. It's just making the point. So yeah, you're most welcome. Don't use whiteness. It is a concept created by our victimizers. You didn't use it until they created it and gave it to you. So it's meant to harm you, and it does. We don't create whiteness. People with STDs do. Essex Glass says, okay, way to argue, dude. The West you refer to was developed and taught to white people by Africans and many other cultures outside of the West. Historical documents describe Western whites as backward barbarians living in filth. The entire Dark Ages was due to Western kind having their way, and we are still experiencing the results. You are dumb as shit, and you don't have any arguments that are not personal attacks. Effing chump. Does that deserve comment? Oh my gosh. All right. Patricia says, I used to watch Jill as a young girl, 12 or so, on CTV Northern Ontario, and even had the pleasure of meeting her once when she was giving out trees for Earth Day in 2013. She was so kind and just radiated good energy. When she left a while later, I always wondered what she was up to in the media, as she left such a positive impression on me as a little kid. I myself have had a political awakening in my late teens, early 20s. I'm 22 now, as well as many others in my generation over liberal saturation in the media. I started to watch conservative media so I could make an informed decision on what side of the aisle I sat on as a Canadian, and out of genuine curiosity, and found myself agreeing more often than not. I, quote, swallowed the red pill, if you will. I love that Jill is the same and sticks to her guns and isn't sorry about it. That takes guts, especially with today's cancel culture. Thank you, Jill. You are a class act, and it's so nice to see you on my screen again. Yeah, it was wonderful to have her as a guest on tap, and we'll definitely have her again as a guest very soon. Let me make sure I'm not missing anybody. Remember, tag me as No White Guilt if you have something you need me to see. Promethean hails to 0022. Wonderful to see you, brother. Pearl Lady says, I refuse to watch any race-swapped shows or movies. I do watch anything. Most TV and movies are garbage. Well, the thing that's, you're absolutely right. The thing that's so, I guess, I don't want to say even like amazing, jaw-dropping, shocking. The thing that's so confirming of everything that we say here is that I don't watch television. I turn it on very rarely for anything other than just the news quiet in the background or silent. I turn on this randomly beyond the unknown because they're like walking through a museum. And here's this wild man host tells this story about this bartender and getting murdered by this cabbie. And wouldn't you know it, the cabbie was actually non-white, but they gave the role to a white man. What do you think the odds are that with all of the effort in entertainment media by anti-whites to put non-white people in acting roles, even in positions that they're supposedly telling about a historical account about white people, and we see this everywhere, total white erasure, and they'll put non-white actors and actresses in those roles to sort of just like stick it in the eye of the white race, to victimize us some more, to say, there you go, we're just white erasing you from everything. What do you think the odds are that the white actor that got the role to play the murderer did so because of what they would call white privilege? Zero. He got the role because those anti-white POSs knew exactly what they were doing. This is a true historical account of a real murder and a real murderer, and therefore people were going to be watching that on their TVs, their televisions, and they were going to be imbibing it as this is reality. It really happened, even more so than when their subconscious mind is imbibing everything as reality because it can't tell the difference. Their conscious mind, they're being told this is a real event. It really happened. And the murderer, the senseless murderer that murdered this bar owner just trying to make a living for himself, probably working dawn till dusk and all through the night, was a white man. They knew what they were doing when they made that decision. Think about the malice involved. Do you want to continue handling anti-whites with kid gloves when these veritable demons, these leather-winged demons, could sit around and make a decision like that? I know. We'll just switch this so that everybody who watches this show thinks that it was really this murdering white man because the white race is so just to throw more shade, to throw more fire or more wood on the fire of the claim that the white race is just pure and unadulterated evil. That's exactly what they did. I mean, you have the black race in the United States, 12 to 13% of the population, and they are everywhere when it comes to actors and models. Everywhere you go, you would think in the United States that this country is maybe 70+% black instead of it being 12 to 13% black. So without question, if they were trying to give you a historical account of what took place, it would have been very easy to find a black actor to be the black murderer from reality. But that's not what they wanted. That doesn't conform to the anti-white narrative, which is the fiction, the malicious fiction they force us to live under. Victorian time traveler Jason, I don't think it was a coincidence. Something anti-white is always on TV. Precisely. Thank you, good brother. No, Seeker, I don't know anything about that. All right. We have Azimuth Clark here writing, what an amazing show. Thank Jared and Jason for everything. You men have made a huge impact on my life. I'm a better man and a better father. Wow. Thank you for writing that. That's humbling. That show will be remembered for all time. I love you guys. I love this community. I love our people. Well, we love you, Azimuth Clark. That's a beautiful thing to write. Thank you for that fantastic testimonial. And here we have Victorian time traveler. The other day, he writes, I listened to an old Mother's Day episode from 3 years ago. I remember exactly what I did that day because I had a conversation with one of my aunts about history, and she still to this day won't talk to me. All the things I could have avoided if I was going free. I really do owe a lot to everyone in this community. Most people will never know the cliff I was pushed off and how far I've climbed back up. God bless you, man, for that testimonial. That's really magnificent. Thank you. You're here with us right now. So I want to be able to say directly to you, brother, thank you so much. That's very meaningful. To share the truth that you followed advice of others and it ended up harming you immensely. And in this case, following the advice of others caused you to have a conversation that you were told that was if everybody just knew, and if everybody was just saying this, then everything, we would be better. And what did it do? It ruined your relationship with your aunt, and you've lost the possibility of bringing her around, at least for now, to white well-being. She was never going to care about white people by saying the things that you were saying before. Hopefully you can repair that relationship as you have others since you started going free. Irish Ice writes here, the moral structure of America is anti-white. If the anti-white narrative remains intact and in use, there can be no ancestral tradition or values restored. God, thank you for writing that, brother. Undermine, delegitimize, and neutralize the anti-white narrative by studying Go Free by Jason Köhne. There is no waking up, only going free. Well, I'd never thought about that's perfect. Thank you for saying that. There's no waking up, there's only going free. You've got to go free of the anti-white narrative, which is the psychological warfare that is waged against us. Irish Ice is right. And he's speaking here, obviously, in response to those who are saying, all you got to do is teach them about your ancestral traditions, teach your children about our brothers and sisters out there about our ancestral traditions, and everything will be fine. Well, of course, that's preposterous, because we had much better civilizations, much better populations than we do today. And people were celebrating our ancestral traditions, and anti-whitism defeated us. So you can't go back to what was defeated as the tool with which you are going to reclaim our destiny. 0022, I tuned in not that long ago. So the show was mimicking an actual hush crime, but used a white actor to play the role of the killer. And in real life, the killer was a non-white. Yes, precisely. It was telling the historical event. I shared the newspaper clipping, and the way that I figured out that it was a misrepresentation of the race of the actual killer was they flashed the newspaper on the screen for what I saw was just like a fraction of a second. And I caught one word that in the first paragraph that caused me to go look it up and to find the truth. Victorian time traveler talking about the vehicle and the advice, the instruction he was given on how to advocate for the white race and all of the harm that brought him. And he said his attitude at that time was, quote, that's just a sacrifice I have to make. I just have to run off all my family members. I just have to run off all my friends. I just have to get fired from my employment and make it nigh impossible to be employed again as a sacrifice to my people. Well, of course, that's what a lot of good people in those circles, they think that, well, I've got to make the sacrifice for my people. What they don't, of course, and what you ended up realizing is that it's not a sacrifice for your people, because you're not doing your people any good. You're not doing Western kind any good. It's a sacrifice to your own oblivion. You're sacrificing yourself in the pursuit of your own oblivion, of your own ostracization from everyone that cares about you and from society, etc., from any ability to being able to do any good for Western kind. This is why we go free. We implement the go free method in our lives, because it works for us in the way that we want it to reclaim ourselves from the anti-white narrative, from the meme pathogens with which we are infected, and to reclaim our brothers and sisters the same way. Final comment here. Johnny writes, quote, "True heroes never get any medals. No good deed goes unpunished." Meaning true heroes of the world will not always be recognized. This is just a sad fact of reality, such as happened in history many times. By the way, this just brought to mind that I was messaged earlier today, but I haven't had an opportunity to look into it. So perhaps it is true that Mark Dice said today, white erasure, which of course is another one of the concepts that we have been spreading in service to white well-being with the Go Free method for a decade. And so I just want to congratulate him on creating white erasure. Who knows who truly first invented the wheel or gunpowder? Johnny writes. Everybody knows who got credit for it. But at the end of the day, the application and helpfulness with using the inventions is what truly matters, not who invented it. Well, yes and no, Johnny. And I'll tell you why in a minute. We'll see where this goes. So many will use it, and most will never care to mention its main creator or most active and original author truly pushing this lexicon. Okay, so Johnny's writing in response to Mark Dice having started using anti-whitism and then claiming just recently that it just popped into his head one day. And I understand doing that, as I said, and I understand him protecting himself, his work and his channel, his livelihood, and I would never begrudge a man that. And so I think that that was the right course to take for what he was perceiving at the time. There could be some other steps he could take. There could have been some other decisions that I think could have served him better and also served our people, this country better. But we could disagree on that. He could be very busy, and this is just, he thought about this and he thought, well, this is the way I can defend myself against, being kicked off of YouTube and elsewhere. Who knows? So that's what Johnny is speaking to. And I'll finish up what he writes here. But what is most important is now the lexicon is in use and will work to save Western kind. Who gets credit is an ego thing at the end of the day. The goal is to save Western kind. And us true followers of this battle will always know in our hearts who pushed this to the surface most. Although, as with everything in life, someone else will probably take or get credit for it. This is something a true hero always will have to deal with, as in, quote, true heroes never get any medals, close quote. Well, where I disagree, Johnny, is that no one had to go back to the wheel to find out how to make it work or to get more out of the wheel, right? Once they had the wheel, or you could think of what was the other example you gave? Gunpowder. Nobody had to go back to the inventor of gunpowder or the wheel to get more out of it. That was a thing in and of itself. When it comes to the Go Free method, the Go Free method is, as just stated, it's an entire method that is improving, by the way, continuing to be improved with time. So it gets increasingly purer, it gets increasingly more pristine, it gets increasingly more powerful for us and our ability to combat anti-whitism. Now, that means that the best medicine for any of our brothers and sisters is to find their way to the source. That's where they're going to be most empowered. That's where they're going to get the most out of the Go Free method, is when they employ it in their lives, is when they study it, is when they make it a practice that they go back to as often as necessary. it's true that that we want to push, and that's what we do. We push the lexicon into usage in society. This is how we've changed the world already, that something that no one else has ever done. It's changed societal conversation with how much power, how many organizations, media empires do we control? None. But yet we have been able with intelligence to change societal conversation, and we will continue to do so. As a consequence, it changes the landscape in favor of our well-being, to put an end to our victimization by anti-whites. That these pieces that we can put out there, these like seeds that we drop, that we can leave out there for folks to find and that can be spread, are all a positive, are all a way to help to change the environment, the anti-white environment that we are in, into something that is more amenable to white well-being. But having said that, we don't want it to end there. We want as many people as possible to find out about this community. We want to be able to glean from larger and larger groups of people the best, the most dedicated, the most intelligent, the wealthiest, the most connected, so that we can continue at quicker and quicker speeds to promulgate this practice to the world. We could stay this size forever and continue to push as we're pushing the different key concepts and other concepts from the Go Free method. But if you were to take that, whatever that outcome is going to be over the course of, say, our lives, others, of course, will take it up after we're dead. But just mathematically, for comparison purposes, we'll say that whatever that consequence is X over the course of our lives. Don't we want to do X plus? Don't we want to have a content creator? Don't we want to have Tucker on Fox have me on to talk about the Go Free method to millions and millions of people? Think about the number of connections we could make instantly, the number of people that would become instantly aware of the lexicon, the number of talented folks who would decide, I am going to be one of the people who make a difference. I'm really going to jump in and make this part of my life. And what kind of power they might wield. What if appearing on Tucker meant that some billionaire ends up seeing us? But if we don't appear on Tucker, some billionaire that would want to support. But if we don't appear on Tucker, well, we're still doing good by pushing the lexicon out there at this rate, of course. But it's not as much good as we could do if we achieve these other things. So I disagree also about, at the end of the day, it's a matter of ego. I have always said that I want people to use the lexicon, these concepts, and that they can even take these concepts and go to their friends and family and say that they invented every bit of it. As long as it's changing their life for their betterment, for the betterment of the people that they love and care about, and then therefore for all of us as a great family of Western kind around the planet, that's what I want. But if I could have my druthers, I would not have people who are not the originators of the doctrine becoming the source for others to look to for more of what they presented before, because they're not going to be able to create the Go Free method. If Tucker tomorrow decided that he's going to start talking about Western kind and the anti-white narrative, and that would be great on one level. It would be magnificent, beyond the moon on one level. But on another level, if the population hearing Western kind and anti-white narrative from Tucker decides to go to Tucker for more of the same, that's a big loss, because Tucker is not going to give them more of the same. Only we will. And I hope that I've cleared that up for everybody. High Speed Drifter says, I keep promoting No White Guilt website to celebrate conservatives. We need to keep talking to them until they notice. Amen to that, brother. Well said. Diamond Dust, going free is an ever-evolving system. Like any antivirus, it is updated every time the virus adapts and mutates. Very well said. Archangel, if someone else inevitably takes credit for an accomplishment, doesn't that legitimize your desire to ensure people know you created the lexicon? If someone else takes credit for an accomplishment, doesn't that legitimize your desire to ensure people know that you created the lexicon? Johnny just defeated his own argument. Thank you, brother, for that. Yes. Victorian Time Traveler says, we all know who invented gunpowder and the wheel. It was Mark Dice. If I ever meet him, I'll be able to rib him on that. Diamond Dust says, Jason, would you be interested in starting your own media company? Of course. Yeah. Show me the deca or centimillionaire or billionaire that would like to do that, and we'll get started. We can make it happen. We already have a ton of people that would be ready to fill positions. They're working for nothing already, so they'd be happy to get a paycheck and give it their full time. Now, I still think, without question, that Mark Dice is a good guy, and I don't have anything. I don't hold any grudge against him. I don't have anything against him. He obviously was in a position to have to decide how he was going to protect the work that he is doing, and therefore also the ability to spread the lexicon. And if he used white erasure today, if that's true, or yesterday, or whenever people are saying that he did, I laud that to the heavens. And maybe that's a way to quietly signal to us that, hey, you're right. I actually said this so that anti-whites couldn't say, oh, look, he's using the language of these neo-Nazis over there, so you got to kick him off YouTube. Maybe that's his way to signal us. I didn't lose any appreciation for Mark Dice when he said that. Not in the least. Yeah, he's got to protect what he's doing, and being in that position, being able to say anti-whitism, being able to say white erasure now, maybe next month being able to say Western kind, who knows what else will come thereafter. Being in that position to speak to so many people is, I would be able to meet him eye to eye and shake his hand without question. And that, my friends, I think is going to be the end of our time here today. But keep an eye out for any other roll-ins. They are inclined to happen from time to time. And also, of course, going free gathering on Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then, of course, you have Jason Goes Political, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays. Look forward to seeing you all then. Roll out. I want you to reach out in love. I want you to let those brothers and sisters around the base, let them know that even though the anti-whites wield so much power, that we are winning every contest with them, and that it's only a matter of time. Tell them that they can be more than they are. Tell them that they can stand up for Western kind, Western civilization, and everyone who lives in Western civilization of all immutable characteristics. Tell them that there's a way that they can stand up for it in love, with the moral high ground. Be gentle with them at first. Coming out of a story that you thought was the real world is one of the hardest things that folks can do. If you go there with a true spirit and a true heart, with humility, you're going to win more souls than you'll ever turn away. And in the end, all of that will redound to the glory of our people and the reclamation of our destiny.